Well, a very, very, very good morning to you. Beautiful, warm, blue skies, actually hot, sunny. What can you ask for? Anything more? Okay, I mean, apart from to be in Florida, of course, but we are in England, the northeast of England, and hope you're well this Sunday morning. Welcome to church, welcome to a church without walls, a church. It looks like the middle of a jungle this morning, but hey, it's good. You see these trees behind me? Those trees, when I filmed a couple of months ago now, it doesn't seem very long ago, these trees looked sorry for themselves. They were barren, they were pale, they were little sticks on the end of a big tree trunk, and this morning they are flourishing. You know what once looked dead is now very much green and alive and thriving and all that stuff. And I'm praying that over your life. You know, stuff that might have seemed dead just recently, or prayer that wasn't answered, um, answers that weren't coming, breakthrough that wasn't happening, miracles that were just invisible, out of sight. Things look out of time. Things looked bleak. And this morning, I want to encourage you as I start this message this morning that things change. I'm praying as these trees have flourished behind me and gone from sticks to huge leaf-filled branches. I'm praying that for you this morning, that there will be a season right now of flourishing, a season right now where prayer is answered, a season right now where you see that breakthrough, you see that miracle, you see the answers you've been looking for. Okay, so I'm going to kick off with that this morning. Nothing to do really with my message, but I want to encourage you with that in the few minutes that we've got this morning. Hopefully undisturbed here in the jungle, the wilderness. But let's see. Sunday, the 12th of July, 2026. I want to talk this morning about a letter from Jezebel. You know, we've talked about a letter from troublemakers, a letter from the Queen, and I'm just renaming this message, this title this morning, if you're interested in titles, a letter from Jezebel. And this all comes from what I read last week from 1 Kings 19 verse 1 about a guy called Elijah, a prophet called Elijah. If you don't know the Bible, this prophet Elijah was so blessed. He was so strong. God was with him, and he saw massive, massive, massive miracles and massive victories and all kinds of things happening in his life. And then we come to this point. You know, he's had huge success. And sometimes, as I've mentioned before, when you get huge success, there will be people who are not happy with your success. When you get answers to prayer and you get your miracle and you get your breakthrough, thank God this morning for people who celebrate with you, and your cheerleaders and your prayer warriors who've been with you all the time and were there down when the tree was barren, when the tree was sticks, but now they celebrate with you. Well, unfortunately, such is life. Sadly, there are other people who are not so happy. There are other people who do not celebrate with you, who criticize, who complain, who voice their opinion, who just don't celebrate with you, who go silent. Okay. And this is a situation Elijah is in. He's had a massive victory. He's beaten down all the enemies, all the false gods, shown them up, embarrassed them. And this is what happens next in 1 Kings 19 verse 1. Okay, here we go. 1 Kings 19:1. Jezebel, who was the queen, immediately sent a messenger. So that would be a letter. So this is a letter from Jezebel to Elijah with her threat. Okay, so you got to remember that. The gods will get you for this. Gods with small g. Okay? And I'll get even with you. By this time tomorrow, you'll be as dead as any of these prophets you've just destroyed. And verse 3 said, when Elijah saw this, he ran for dear life to the desert, wanting to just die. What a come down from the miracle, from the breakthrough, from the victory, from the success, to this point where he runs for his life. He wants to die. He wants out of all of this, despite what God has done for him, despite the prayer he's seen answered, despite all the stuff that's gone right. And it's amazing how successful people sometimes come to this point. They've seen all the success, they've got all the money, they've got the houses, they've got the cars, they've got the fame, the fortune, and yet it's not enough. And something happens, and they run or they hide or they become a recluse. And Elijah's come to a point he wants to die. Why? All because of a letter from Jezebel. Now, I just wonder this morning if you've ever had a letter from Jezebel. It might not be somebody called Jezebel. It's not a very common name these days. But what I'm talking about is that spirit of that attitude of that personality of someone trying to control you. I certainly have experienced this a number of times in my life where there have been people. I don't mean at work where bosses tell you what to do and where where people ask you to do something for them. I don't mean that. I mean somebody with this spirit of control, with this attitude of control, with this Jezebel spirit, which is what Jezebel was trying to do with Elijah. She said, it was a threatening letter. It was all these kind of things that were threatening Elijah, wanting to control him, wanting to bring him under her influence, wanting to dictate what he did, where he went, what he thought, his success. And I just wonder this morning if you've ever experienced that. If maybe you've been in a relationship with somebody and many, many years ago, and you experienced control, you experienced intimidation. We call it bullying. You experienced bullying, only it was very subtle. It was very clever because nobody. The thing about bullies, the thing about Jezebels, is that sometimes people around don't see it because it's personal. And maybe you've been, I'm not going to say the victim, but maybe you've experienced a number of times, or maybe it was a number of years ago, but even now, right now, you still feel that same feeling that you got, that control, that intimidation, that bullying, that coercion, however you want to call it, that abuse of somebody's position, that abuse of somebody's friendship with you, somebody's marriage to you, somebody's relationship to you. And maybe it was then, but even now, you know how Elijah felt. You can't criticize Elijah. I can't criticize Elijah because I have hidden from intimidation. I have moved away from intimidation. I've run away from intimidation, never wanting to die, but certainly wanting to be out of that situation and wanting those people out of my life. And so I'm with you this morning, Elijah's with you this morning, and God's with you this morning. If there has ever been or is right now, you've ever had a letter from Jezebel, someone trying to control you by 5 things, which is what the Jezebel spirit is, and what Jezebel tried to do and partially succeeded with Elijah. Didn't ultimately succeed. Elijah went through a dark season, and maybe you can identify with that this morning. He went through a dark season. He went through a lonely season where nobody understands really when the intimidation is personal, when the bullying is personal, when the control is personal. People around don't understand that, but you do this morning. So Jezebel and people like Jezebel, sadly, there are people like this. Someone trying to control you by, number one, by revenge. Jezebel was bent on revenge. She said, I'll get even with you. And this morning, you can identify with that. There are people sometimes who seek revenge. There are people who are out for revenge. Maybe you had to confront them at some point. Maybe you had to speak to them quite strongly at some point. Maybe I don't know, maybe you wronged them. Maybe it was you in the wrong, but you apologized, you attempted to put it right, you tried to correct it. I've got to tell you, I've been in that situation where we've upset somebody quite innocently, not meaning to upset somebody, offended somebody quite innocently. And when I found out that I had apologized, said I'm sorry, forgive me, let's move on, and you think it's all done and dusted until you realize they're out for revenge. And I've come across people and situations and circumstances, and maybe you have as well, where you thought it was all done and dusted. You thought it was all over with. Let's move on to the next chapter. Let's move on from this. And yes, let's move on from this. Forgive me. Of course, I forgive you. All done. And then they go and do something to get revenge, to get their own back. And that's what a letter from Jezebel is. It's somebody trying to control you by revenge. Number two, along with this, someone trying to control you by threat. I don't know if you've ever, if you can use that word. It's quite a strong word when you think about what people can do to you, say to you. But the Bible says that Jezebel sent a letter with her threat. And I don't know if you ever felt threatened. I certainly have, yeah. I've been there, we've been there. We felt threatened by somebody. I don't mean somebody threatening your position or threatening your success. I mean somebody threatening you, threatening to get you, threatening to come after you, threatening to get revenge on you. Or maybe they haven't said that. And this is the clever thing. You see, people can threaten you without even saying it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe you don't. Maybe you've never had this. But if you do this morning, you will know that Jezebels are very subtle. They are very clever about it, because no one sees what they're doing, but you feel. And I think that's the thing this morning. It doesn't have to be a verbal threat or a physical threat, but you feel threatened. You feel, excuse me, you feel cornered. You feel under threat because somebody is trying to control you. Number three, someone trying to control you by very simply control. They're just simply trying to control you. They're trying to control what you think, what you do. Have you ever had people in life like that? Ever had people come into your life or been in your life for quite a while, trying to control you, trying to control your decisions, trying to control your choices, trying to control your direction, trying to control your voice? Wow. I've certainly come across that as a leader, as a preacher, as a pastor. I've experienced that, people very, very cleverly trying to control you, suggesting things to you. You have a plan. You have as a leader, you always have a plan. And then Jezebel comes around and sends a letter saying, "Well, I think you should do this, and will you allow me to do this?" Oh, over many years, experience that, and it's control. And trying to control somebody's life is wrong, and we should never do it, because it's a Jezebel spirit. And maybe you've experienced that this morning. And my heart goes out to you, because we managed to come through that. We managed to overcome that. And I have a rule in my life now that I will not allow people, and I've had it for a couple of years now, I will not allow people to control me. People can suggest, and people can offer their opinion, and certainly people in what you call your inner circle, like family, inner circle of, in my case, about two, I think, two friends, a horse and a rabbit. That's on Instagram, okay? That's a different thing. But no, seriously, anybody can, offer their opinion, especially people within friends, family, inner circle. But even, anybody can offer advice, and it's good to get advice. It's good to get counsel. But when the advice turns into control, are you with me? When the opinion turns into control, then we have a problem. Then we have a letter from Jezebel, and we need to know how to deal with it. We need to deal with it. And I would counsel you this morning, as I've counseled myself over a number of years. I will not allow people to have Jezebel control over my decisions, my life, okay, my time, my opinions, my voice, my direction, my future, whatever my is in your life. Can you make that decision this morning? Of course, allow advice, allow counsel, allow limited opinion. Come on, are you with me? Not everybody has a right to their opinion in your life. How you dress, how you speak, etc., etc., etc. Okay? So will you make that decision this morning? That will help you. When you get a letter from Jezebel, that will help you. When you have to make a decision and people are offering their opinions, suggestions, but simply trying to control you. Do not allow people to control you. Make the decision. If I make this choice, if I make that decision, then it's on my back, okay? But at least I'm controlling the narrative. That's the modern thing that people say, that Elijah wasn't controlling the narrative. Jezebel was controlling the narrative. She was controlling his future because of revenge, threat, control. Number 4, I'm not getting very far with this morning, but never mind that. I'm going to continue next week again because I like this theme. Because you may not realize that. I'll tell you why. Because the reason I like it is you may not realize you've had a letter from Jezebel until you have that feeling that someone's controlling you, or someone's doing this. Number 4, someone trying to control you by intimidation, right? You may not even realize you've had a letter from Jezebel until you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, in your heart, in your spirit, that you're being intimidated by somebody louder. Come on, ever had those? Yes, you have. You've had those people in your life, right? They think because they're the loudest that they're right and that they can offer opinion, that can control you. Yes, okay, been there, done this, had that over my life, and I never want to do that in my life. Okay, no matter how much, I might be asked to offer my opinion to somebody or help somebody or counsel somebody, as we still do quite often in our office in Starbucks. My wife and I listen, and we counsel, we give advice, but I never wanted to come across as intimidation, as you must do this, and to give someone that. You've had that feeling this morning, haven't you? Maybe you're feeling it right now, where you feel intimidated because of somebody with more authority, somebody who's louder, somebody who's a bit sharper, somebody who just is bigger and in authority, right? And you feel intimidated. That's a letter from Jezebel. When you feel like that, you've had a letter from Jezebel. And one of the worst things about that letter is the intimidation. Intimidation means you're made to feel small. You're made to feel subject to. That's what intimidation is. So when David faced the giant Goliath in the Old Testament, Goliath's weapon, apart from his strength, was intimidation. He abused David. He wanted David, who was already small, to feel even smaller. If somebody makes you feel smaller, that's intimidation, and that's a letter from Jezebel, and we need to deal with that, because we should not allow anybody to make us feel smaller and weaker in any shape or form, right? When we counsel somebody, when we help somebody, when we talk to somebody, when we have to, I don't know if you're doing this, I have to confront somebody. Thankfully nowadays I don't have to do this really much at all, but I used to have to. And I was always conscious that when you have to confront somebody, because maybe they've done something wrong, maybe they've overstepped the mark, maybe they've just gone too far, maybe, I don't know, maybe they're bullying somebody else, you can see it happening, and you've got to confront somebody over something. Always, the back of my mind was, I never want this to feel like intimidation. I might be the boss, which I've done in real life. in the civil service, I was a manager over about 15 people. And even then, even at that immature, stupid stage I went through, where you have the power, even when I had to tell somebody then, I was always conscious, because I don't want this in my life. And if you don't want this in your life, don't sow the seed in somebody else's life. I think that's a good lesson to live by. If you don't want this to happen to you, if you don't want to feel like this, don't make somebody else feel like this, right? Don't sow that seed in their life. And I was always conscious when I had, younger people as a youth leader, as a youth worker, had authority, had the power to confront young people, and sometimes I had to really pull back because it was bordering on intimidation, and I don't want that in my life. I don't want to ever have that feeling of intimidation. I never want to be the Jezebel sending a letter. Do you understand that this morning? If I don't want that to happen to me, I'm not going to sow that seed in somebody's life. And I think that goes for all of the above that I've mentioned. If I don't want to experience revenge, then I don't want to sow revenge in somebody else's life. If I don't want to feel under threat, then I'm not going to poke the finger at somebody and threaten them. If I don't want to feel like I'm under control, then I don't want to control other people. If I don't want to feel intimidated, I don't want to sow the seed of intimidation in somebody else's life. I do not want to be Jezebel. And I hope that's good counsel for you this morning. I hope that's good advice for you. I've got one more before we finish. I've got absolutely nowhere in my notes, so I've got loads more to talk about next week, which is brilliant, isn't it? Yay! Anyway, a letter from Jezebel. Someone trying to control you by. Number 5, finally, manipulation. Oh my goodness. One of the most horrible feelings is a feeling that you've been manipulated, or that you are being manipulated. Manipulation comes from, when, don't even know if they have them, the puppets that are controlled by strings, a bit like Pinocchio. And, Pinocchio was controlled. Even until he became the boy, he was a puppet. And somebody controlled what he said, how far he went, his movements, his ideas, all that kind of thing. Somebody was always pulling the strings until he broke free and became a boy. And I think when we feel like that, when we feel like somebody has been pulling our strings, somebody has tricked us, somebody has ambushed us, somebody has manipulated us, and sometimes it's only looking back on a situation where you see that person who said that, that person who arranged that person who did that person who gave us that gift didn't give it out of a spirit of generosity, or didn't give it out of a spirit of love or kindness. Maybe they give it out of a spirit of manipulation. Ever been in that situation where somebody gave you something but wanted something in return? I'm going to go back to what I said. If I don't want that to happen to me, then I'm not going to sow that seed in somebody's life. When we give something, give it with no strings attached. Are you watching me? Give it with no strings attached. I never want to be the person manipulating or controlling the strings, but when we give something, give it out of love. Give it with expecting and wanting nothing in return. Isn't that a great way to give? Isn't that a great way to bless somebody? Not because we want something back, not because we want them to do something, not because we're trying to buy their love, okay, or buy their loyalty, but simply to bless them. I love it when people have done that in our lives, and we've been able to do that in other people's lives. That feeling of, I just want to bless you. I just want to give you something with nothing in return. Never, ever want to have that feeling that I'm giving somebody something, or saying something to somebody, or arranging a meeting or a coffee with somebody simply to manipulate, simply to pull the strings. And if you're feeling like that this morning, then I'm praying for you. If you're feeling like somebody has been pulling your strings, you've had a letter from Jezebel trying to control you by manipulation, then this morning I want to encourage you to become Pinocchio the boy, to break free from the puppeteer, and to get that freedom, to pray for that freedom. I'm praying for that freedom for you this morning, so you have the freedom to decide, so you have the freedom to think and to speak. Do not allow people, do not allow Jezebel to manipulate you. Okay? So there are 5 things this morning that are signs that you've had a letter from Jezebel. Maybe you didn't even realize it. Maybe right now you can identify it and say, you know what, Dave, I've realized this morning that's what that is. That's what that was. And maybe you need to store this for the future. Maybe you might need to put this in your heart for the future. So when things happen in the future and you recognize it as a letter from Jezebel, then you know what? I'm not going to have it. I'm going to rip it up. I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to put it in the bin. I'm going to shred it. Okay? I hope that helps you this morning. I've got loads more to talk about next week about this letter from Jezebel. I'm going to just continue. Okay, so hey, listen, have a blessed week. Have a great week. And I'm praying for you. If you felt any of these 5 things I mentioned, then let's deal with it together. That letter from Jezebel, okay? Have a blessed week. We'll see you next week. I don't know how England will have got on, but come on, England. Okay, bless you. Bye.